Ben Simmons is back. 12 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 4 of 5 from the field, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 27 minutes. Ben Simmons made his debut for the Clippers, and he wasted 0 time putting up numbers. This wasn't just an average first game. This was Simmons reminding everyone exactly what he's capable of. Let's start with the scoring. 12 points might not jump off the page, but efficiency like that absolutely does. He took just 5 shots and only missed 1. That's nearly perfect. And those 4 free throws, all of them went in. People have doubted his scoring for years, but when a guy is putting up numbers like that with almost 0 wasted possessions, that's exactly what a winning team wants. Now let's talk about those rebounds. 7 boards in 27 minutes. That's the kind of production that keeps a team rolling. He was grabbing rebounds on both ends, keeping possessions alive, and making sure the Clippers controlled the glass. That's huge for a team trying to win in the West. And it wasn't just about grabbing the boards. It was about what he did after. Simmons has always been a transition machine, and he was pushing the pace right after every rebound. The Clippers weren't just securing the ball, they were getting right into their offense. That's the type of impact that doesn't always show up in the box score, but it's absolutely felt on the court. And those 6 assists, that's Simmons at his best. He wasn't just making the easy passes, he was setting up his teammates in perfect spots. That's why the Clippers brought him in. He's a playmaker in every sense of the word. The ball was moving, guys were getting open, and Simmons was the one making it all happen. And remember, this was his first game with the team. He's already showing chemistry with his new teammates, and it's only going to get better from here. That's a scary thought. Then there's the defense. 3 steals in 27 minutes? That's elite. Simmons was all over the place, reading the passing lanes, jumping in at the right time, and making life miserable for the Jazz. This guy has always been one of the most disruptive defenders in the league, and he showed it right away. And it's not just the steals, it's how they happen. He's got those quick hands, he's got the instincts, and he knows exactly where to be at the right time. The Clippers just got a guy who can lock down opponents without even needing to take a shot. That's invaluable. And let's talk about how much the Clippers trusted him. This wasn't just a quick 10-minute run to see what he could do. 27 minutes off the bench in his first game? That's a real role. The Clippers needed him on the floor, and he delivered in every way. Whether it was making plays, grabbing rebounds, or playing elite defense, he was locked in from the jump. And the numbers back it up. When Simmons was on the floor, the Clippers played their best basketball. The lineup of Simmons, Harden, Batum, Norman Powell, and Chris Dunn had a plus 31.6 per 100 possessions. That's dominance. And another lineup with Simmons, Harden, Batum, and Bogdanovic, even better, a plus 59.9 per 100 possessions. That's insane. Those numbers don't happen by accident. The Clippers looked like a completely different team when Simmons was in the mix. And let's not forget, this game went into overtime. It wasn't an easy win. The Clippers had to battle for it, and Simmons played a huge role in getting them across the finish line. A 120-116 win over the Utah Jazz, heading into the All-Star break with a 31-23 record. They're right in the mix in the Western Conference, and Simmons just gave them a massive boost. This is exactly the kind of debut he needed. No distractions, no drama, just production. This wasn't the Simmons that struggled in Brooklyn. This was the guy who made 3 All-Star teams, won Rookie of the Year, and was a runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. He looked confident, aggressive, and in control. That's a dangerous combination. 12 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 4 of 5 shooting, and a perfect night at the free throw line. That's not just a solid game, that's winning basketball. The Clippers didn't just add another player. They added a guy who makes the entire team better. But I think a lot of people might not understand how much Ben Simmons could help the Clippers. And it gets really obvious when he check out the advanced stats. Let's start with scoring. Also, I gotta show highlights from his other teams because the dude's played 1 game as a Clipper. Anyways, Simmons is putting up 6.4 points per game, which is more than 65% of players. That might not be a massive number, but it's about efficiency. His effective field goal percentage is 55.4%, which puts him ahead of more than 45% of the league. He doesn't take a ton of shots, but when he does, he makes them count. Compare that to Norman Powell, who's averaging 24.2 points per game, more than 95% of players, with an effective field goal percentage of 59.5%. Powell is a high-volume scorer, taking 17 shots per game, but he's still maintaining elite efficiency. That's where Simmons comes in, with his passing and ability to push the pace. Powell is going to get even more easy looks. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Simmons and the Clippers. James Harden is putting up 21.5 points per game, more than 92% of players, but his effective field goal percentage is lower at 48.2%. That means he's taking tougher shots, but that's where Simmons helps. Harden's true shooting percentage is 56.7%, which shows he's still scoring efficiently despite the volume. With Simmons on the floor, Harden won't have to force as many tough shots because Simmons is going to get him the ball in better spots. That's the kind of impact that doesn't always show up in the basic stats, but it's there. Then there's Kawhi Leonard, averaging 16.3 points per game, which is more than 84% of players. His effective field goal percentage sits at 51.9%, putting him ahead of 45% of the league. He's one of the most methodical scorers in the game, taking his time and picking his spots. That's where Simmons fits perfectly. Simmons is always looking to get his teammates the best shot possible, and with Kawhi's ability to score at all three levels, he's going to get even more clean looks. Zubac is another guy who benefits instantly from playing with Simmons. Zubac is averaging 15.2 points per game, more than 82% of players, but his efficiency is ridiculous. His effective field goal percentage is 61.2%, more than 88% of the league. That's because he gets his points in high percentage areas, and that's exactly where Simmons thrives as a passer. Zubac is already converting at an elite level, but with Simmons setting him up, those numbers could get even better. Simmons' true shooting percentage is 57.5%, which puts him in the upper tier of efficient scorers. He doesn't take a ton of shots, but he makes sure the ones he does take are high percentage looks. Compare that to Powell, who has a true shooting percentage of 63.1%, and Zubac, who sits at 62.7%. These are guys who are already scoring at an elite efficiency, and Simmons' ability to push the ball and find open teammates is only going to increase their production. Harden's true shooting percentage at 56.7% and Kawhi's at 54.2% show that both of them are still highly efficient. But Simmons' presence means they won't have to force as many tough shots. Simmons is going to get them even more opportunities to attack in rhythm, which means even more efficient scoring. And here's where it really comes together. Points per scoring attempt. Simmons is putting up 1.1 points per attempt, which is solid. But look at the guys around him. Powell is at 1.3. Zubac is at 1.3. And even Harden and Kawhi are sitting at 1.1. That's the sign of a well-balanced team. Simmons isn't there to dominate the scoring. He's there to keep the offense moving and make sure these guys get the best possible looks. Zubac is making nearly 7 two-point shots per game on just 11 attempts, while Powell is knocking down more than 5 per game inside the arc, while also hitting more than 3 from deep. Simmons' ability to drive and kick means guys like Powell and Harden are going to get even more clean shots. And for a guy like Zubac, who's already shooting more efficiently than 88% of the league, Simmons' passing is only going to make him even more dominant in the paint. But where Simmons really thrives is with his passing. Simmons ranks in the top 3% of all players in ball handling, sitting at an insane 97%. That's not just good, that's top-tier playmaking. And it's not just about dribbling, it's about what happens next. Simmons is averaging 6.9 assists per game, which puts him ahead of 98% of players, and he's assisting on 40.45% of his teammates' buckets while he's on the floor. That is elite playmaking, and it's exactly what this team needed. Now look at James Harden. He's putting up 8.6 assists per game, also ranking ahead of 98% of the league. His assist percentage is 37.34%, which means when he's on the floor, he's responsible for over a third of the Clippers' scoring plays. And Simmons, he's assisting on even more. That means when they're on the court together, the Clippers' offense is going to be running at full speed. It's one thing to have one elite passer, but having two? That's almost unfair. And it's not just about the total assists, it's about the points generated. Simmons is assisting on 17.6 points per game, while Harden is creating 20.2 points just from his passing. That means these two are generating nearly 40 points a night just from their playmaking alone. That's before they even score a single bucket themselves. That's what makes Simmons such a game changer. He's creating high percentage shots for his teammates, keeping the offense flowing, and making life easier for everyone around him. And speaking of efficiency, let's talk about Kawhi Leonard. He's not known as a passer, but he still puts up 2.7 assists per game, assisting on 14.49% of his teammates' buckets. That's solid. But with Simmons on the floor, Kawhi won't need to play the role of a facilitator as much. That means he can focus entirely on what he does best, scoring efficiently and playing elite defense. Kawhi is already one of the most methodical scorers in the game, but now he doesn't have to waste energy creating shots for others. Norman Powell is another guy who's going to see instant benefits from Simmons' passing. Powell is a pure scorer, putting up 24.2 points per game, which is more than 95% of the league. But when it comes to passing, he's only assisting on 10.42% of his teammates' buckets, which makes sense because his job is to put the ball in the hoop. That's why having a playmaker like Simmons changes everything. Powell is already an efficient scorer, and now he's going to get even more open looks without having to create his own shots. That's a massive upgrade for the Clippers. Chris Dunn is another key part of this equation. He's averaging 2.9 assists per game and assisting on 16.88% of his teammates' baskets. That's solid. But Simmons' presence means Dunn can play more off the ball and focus on making smart plays. He's already a solid ball handler, ranking in the top 79% of the league. But with Simmons controlling the tempo, Dunn can focus on finding the right spots instead of running the entire offense. And then there's Zubac. He's averaging 2.5 assists per game and assisting on 11.65% of his teammates' shots, which is impressive for a big man. But here's the thing. Simmons is going to get him even more easy looks. Zubac is already an elite finisher, shooting better than 88% of the league. And now, he's got one of the best passers in the game, feeding him even easier buckets. That means his efficiency is only going to get better. And the Clippers are going to have one of the most dominant inside presences in the league. But passing isn't just about assists. It's also about taking care of the ball. Simmons has a turnover percentage of 17.22%, which is expected for a high usage playmaker. Harden, who's also running the offense, has a turnover percentage of 14.01%. But here's where it gets interesting. Kawhi is at 10.74%. Powell is at 8.8%. And Dunn is at 11.26%. That means the Clippers aren't just moving the ball well, they're doing it while limiting mistakes. And then you have Zubac, who's sitting at 10.37% in turnover percentage. That's fantastic for a big man. He's not wasting possessions. And now that he's got Simmons, feeding him even more easy looks. Those turnovers are going to stay low while his scoring efficiency goes through the roof, with Simmons running the show alongside Harden. The Clippers are going to have one of the most dynamic passing duos in the entire league. Harden thrives in isolation and pick and roll situations, while Simmons excels in transition and finding open teammates in motion. That means defenses won't be able to key in on one style of play. The Clippers can attack in multiple ways, and that makes them almost impossible to guard. And the numbers prove it. Simmons and Harden alone are responsible for nearly 40 points per game just from their passing. That's not even counting their own scoring. When you add in guys like Powell, who's an elite shooter, Kawhi, who can score from anywhere, and Zubac, who dominates the paint, you have an offense that can attack from every single angle. But then we can do the same for the defense. The Clippers are already one of the best defensive teams in the league, and adding Ben Simmons is only going to make them even tougher. Simmons ranks in the top 65% of the league in mixed team defense, meaning he's been solid at preventing opponents from scoring both on the ball and within the team structure. His numbers took a hit in Brooklyn, but now he's in a system where team defense is a priority. He's averaging 0.9 steals, 0.5 blocks, and 4.4 D rebounds per game. His team defensive efficiency in Brooklyn was 115.3, which isn't great, but that's a product of the system he was in. Now, compare that to James Harden, who ranks in the top 96% of players in mixed team defense. Harden has been one of the biggest surprises on defense this season, putting up 1.5 steals, 0.6 blocks, and 5.2 D rebounds per game, with a team defensive efficiency of 109.4. That's elite. Harden has stepped up on that end, and now he's got another versatile defender next to him in Simmons. Norman Powell has also been a key piece of the Clippers' elite defense, ranking in the top 88% of players in mixed team defense. He's putting up 1.3 steals, 0.2 blocks, and 3.2 D rebounds per game, with a team defensive efficiency of 109.2. That means when Powell is on the floor, opponents are struggling to get clean shots. And now, with Simmons in the mix, the Clippers have another long, athletic defender who can switch onto multiple positions and make their already elite defense even better. But the real anchor of this Clippers defense is Zubac. He's ranked in the top 99% of players in mixed team defense, making him one of the best rim protectors in the league. He's averaging 0.8 steals, 1.1 blocks, and a ridiculous 8.8 D rebounds per game. His team defensive efficiency is an insane 107.5, proving he's the foundation of this Clippers defense. Now, he's got Simmons, a guy who can guard multiple positions playing in front of him. That's going to make life even easier for Zubac because Simmons can take pressure off him by locking up perimeter threats before they even get into the paint. Kawhi Leonard is another massive reason the Clippers are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. He's ranked in the top 96% of players in mixed team defense, which is no surprise considering he's been one of the best defenders in the league for years. He's putting up 1 steal, 0.5 blocks, and 4 D rebounds per game. His team defensive efficiency is 100 to 6.8, the best on the team. That means when he's on the floor, the Clippers are shutting teams down at the highest level. And now, adding Simmons to that mix means the Clippers have another elite defender who can switch onto multiple positions and completely disrupt opposing offenses. And this is where Simmons' real impact starts to show. His numbers in Brooklyn weren't great, but he was on a team that struggled to defend at every level. Now, he's stepping into a Clippers system that already has elite defenders all over the floor. That means Simmons can play to his strengths without having to cover for weak defenders. Harden and Powell are already playing elite perimeter defense, forcing turnovers and making it tough for opponents to get clean looks. Zubac is controlling the paint at an insane level, contesting shots and shutting down anything near the rim. Kawhi is still one of the best all-around defenders in basketball, locking down star players and making life miserable for anyone trying to score. And now Simmons joins that mix, bringing more size, more versatility, and another player who can take on tough matchups. Simmons' presence means guys like Harden and Powell can take more risks on the perimeter, knowing they have another elite defender behind them to help cover mistakes. It means Kawhi doesn't have to take on every tough assignment by himself because Simmons can help shoulder that load. And it means Zubac can focus more on protecting the rim rather than having to constantly rotate to stop dribble penetration. This isn't just adding another solid defender. This is adding a guy who's going to make the entire defense even better. And here's what makes the Clippers so special. Team defensive efficiency. When Simmons was with Brooklyn, his team defensive efficiency sat at 115.3, which was one of the worst among elite defenders. But now, look at the Clippers. Powell's team defensive efficiency is 109.2, Harden's is 109.4, and Zubac's is an elite 107.5. Then there's Kawhi, who's sitting at 106.8, making him one of the most impactful defenders in the entire NBA. That means Simmons is now stepping into a system that is already shutting down opponents at a high level. And then besides that, we all know Simmons always dominates on the boards. Simmons is pulling down 5.3 rebounds per game, ranking ahead of 76% of all players. That's a strong number for a player who's been in a system that didn't prioritize rebounding, but now he's on a team that thrives on controlling the glass. He's grabbing 4.4 D rebounds per game and nearly 1 O rebound per game, ranking in the top 47% of the league in O rebounding. His O rebounding percentage is 3.65%, meaning he's securing a solid amount of second chance opportunity. But the real key, his D rebounding percentage. Simmons is pulling down 18.88% of available D rebounds when he's on the floor, ranking in the top 82% of players. That's where he's going to be most valuable, securing misses, immediately looking to push the ball, and getting the Clippers into transition. Now compare that to James Harden, who's averaging 5.8 rebounds per game, ranking ahead of 61% of players. Harden is grabbing 5.2 D rebounds per game, but just 0.6 O rebounds per game. His O rebounding percentage is 1.78%, ranking in the bottom 17% of the league in that category. That means Harden isn't crashing the offensive glass much, but that's exactly why Simmons is going to help. Simmons' ability to grab O rebounds means Harden can stay in position to run the offense, while Simmons handles the dirty work down low. On the defensive glass, Harden is securing 14.95% of available rebounds, a solid number for a guard, but Simmons is doing it at an even higher rate. Now the Clippers have another high-level D rebounder next to Harden, which means even fewer second chance opportunities for opposing teams. And then there's the rebounding machine, Zubac. He's putting up 12.6 rebounds per game, which is more than 99% of players. That's an elite number, and he's doing it by completely controlling the paint. Zubac is pulling down a ridiculous 8.8 D rebounds and 3.8 O rebounds per game. His O rebounding percentage is 12.51%, ranking in the top 96% of the league. His D rebounding percentage, a ridiculous 27.35%, putting him ahead of 97% of all players. That's pure dominance. And now he's got Simmons next to him, a guy who's long, athletic, and great at tracking down rebounds in space. That means even more second chance opportunities and even more possessions secured for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard is also contributing on the boards, averaging 4.6 rebounds per game, ranking ahead of 59% of the league. He's pulling down 4 D rebounds and 0.6 O rebounds per game. But what really stands out is how efficient he is at grabbing the boards that matter most. His D rebounding percentage is 14.74%, which means he's doing his job securing possessions while staying focused on his role as a scorer and defender. And now, with Simmons in the mix, Kawhi doesn't have to worry as much about crashing the glass. He can focus on getting into his scoring spots while Simmons and Zubac handle the rebounding workload. Derrick Jones Jr. is another player who's going to thrive, with Simmons handling rebounding duties. Jones Jr. is pulling down 3.6 rebounds per game, which is more than 46% of the league. He's grabbing 2.3 D rebounds and 1.4 O rebounds per game, ranking in the top 68% of players in O rebounding percentage. That's where Simmons really helps. Jones Jr. is already solid at grabbing extra possessions on the offensive glass. And now he's got another player who can complement that effort by securing D rebounds and quickly getting the ball up the floor. But here's where Simmons' rebounding impact really shows. Team rebounding balance. The Clippers already have one of the best rebounding teams in the league. Zubac dominates the paint, Harden and Kawhi clean up the D boards, Powell helps secure long rebounds, and Jones Jr. attacks the offensive glass. Now they're adding Simmons, a player who ranks in the top 82% of the league in D rebounding percentage. That means even fewer second chance points for opponents, even more transition opportunities for the Clippers, and even more control of the game. And this is what makes Simmons such a unique rebounding weapon. His ability to push the ball off a rebound. When Simmons grabs a D rebound, the Clippers don't have to wait for a guard to come back and get the ball. He can immediately start the break himself. That means Powell and Kawhi can sprint down the floor, Zubac can establish deep post position, and Harden can find his spots without having to slow things down. That's going to make the Clippers even more dangerous in transition. But then I want to talk about usage. Simmons has a usage rate of 14.5%, ranking ahead of just 26% of players. That means he's not the focal point of the offense, but he's still playing a crucial role in keeping things moving. He's averaging 5.2 field goal attempts per game, 0.9 free throw attempts, 6.9 assists, and 2.6 turnovers, while playing nearly 50 possessions per game. That means he's making an impact without needing to dominate possessions. Instead of taking shots away from Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Norman Powell, he's creating shots for them. That's what makes him such a valuable addition to this team. Now compare that to Norman Powell, who has a usage rate of 27.1%, ranking ahead of 90% of players. Powell is a pure scorer, taking 17 shots per game and getting to the line nearly 5 times per night. He's also dishing out 2.2 assists and turning the ball over just over 2 times per game, while playing 69 possessions per game. Powell is a guy who thrives when he can focus on scoring without having to worry about setting up others. That's exactly why Simmons is going to make him even better. Simmons isn't looking for his own shot. He's looking to set up guys like Powell for open looks. That means Powell is going to get even more high percentage shots without having to create them himself. James Harden has an even higher usage rate at 29.3%, ranking ahead of 95% of players. He's taking 15.9 shots per game, getting to the line almost 7 times, and dishing out a massive 8.6 assists per night. He's also turning the ball over 4.5 times per game, which is expected for a high-usage playmaker. He's playing 70 possessions per game, meaning he's one of the key decision makers every time he's on the floor. But here's where Simmons comes in. Harden doesn't have to do everything himself anymore. Simmons is another elite passer who can take some of the playmaking responsibility off of Harden's shoulders, keeping him fresher and allowing him to pick his spots even better. Instead of having to constantly create offense, Harden can let Simmons initiate plays at times, giving him more energy to attack the defense and score efficiently. That's a massive boost for a team that needs Harden to be at his best late in games. Kawhi Leonard is another high-usage player, ranking in the top 93% of the league with a usage rate of 28.6%. He's taking 14.1 shots per game, getting to the line just over twice, dishing out 2.7 assists, and turning the ball over 2.1 times per game. He's playing 53 possessions per game, meaning he's making decisions nearly every time he touches the ball. That's why Simmons is such a valuable addition. He's going to make sure Kawhi doesn't have to work as hard to create offense. Instead of Kawhi having to bring the ball up, initiate sets, and force tough shots, Simmons is going to be there to keep the offense flowing, so Kawhi can focus on doing what he does best, scoring efficiently and playing elite defense. And then there's Zubac, who has a usage rate of 18.7%, ranking ahead of 58% of players. He's taking 11 shots per game, getting to the line nearly 3 times, dishing out 2.5 assists, and turning the ball over 1.7 times per game while playing 65 possessions per game. That's a solid workload for a big man. But here's where Simmons makes Zubac even better: his passing. Simmons is an elite facilitator, meaning Zubac is going to get even more easy buckets inside. Instead of having to work as hard for post-ups, he's going to be getting perfect passes right at the rim. But the real key to Simmons' impact, he doesn't need a high usage rate to be effective. He's playing nearly 50 possessions per game, yet he's impacting the game with his passing, rebounding, and defense rather than forcing up shots. That's exactly what this Clippers team needs. Powell, Harden, and Kawhi are the primary offensive weapons, and Zubac is a dominant interior presence. Simmons' job is to make their lives easier, and his numbers show he's going to do just that. Simmons' presence means Harden doesn't have to initiate every possession, which keeps him fresh and allows him to focus on scoring more efficiently. It means Powell gets to focus on doing what he does best, scoring at an elite level. It means Kawhi doesn't have to expend as much energy creating his own shot. And it means Zubac is going to get even more high percentage looks around the rim. This isn't just adding another player. This is about adding the perfect player to balance out this team. And that's what makes Simmons so unique. He doesn't demand the ball, but he still impacts winning. His low usage rate means he's not taking possessions away from guys like Kawhi, Harden, and Powell, but he's still keeping the offense moving at an elite level. He's grabbing D rebounds, pushing the pace, setting up teammates, and keeping the offense fluid. That's exactly what this team needed. Overall, though, Ben Simmons is going to help the Clippers in more ways than the numbers even show. He's the kind of player who fills in all the gaps, does the little things that lead to wins, and makes life easier for everyone around him. Whether it's rebounding, playmaking, or defense, Simmons is about to have a huge impact on this team. One of the biggest areas where Simmons will help is on the glass. The Clippers already have one of the best rebounding bigs in the league, with Zubac, who's pulling down over 12 boards per game and ranking in the top 99% of players in rebound. But even Zubac can't do it all by himself. The Clippers' biggest weakness in previous seasons was giving up second chance points, and Simmons is going to help change that. He's already ranking in the top 82% of players in D-rebounding percentage, meaning he knows how to track the ball and secure possession. That means fewer second chance opportunities for opponents and more fast break chances for the Clippers. And this is where Simmons' rebounding becomes even more valuable. He's not just grabbing the ball, he's immediately looking to push the pace. The Clippers have guys like Norman Powell, James Harden, and Kawhi Leonard who can all run the floor, but they need someone who can get them the ball in the right spots. That's where Simmons comes in. When he grabs a board, he's not just holding on to it and waiting for a guard to come back and take over. He's already scanning the floor, looking for the best possible pass, and getting the ball to his teammates in stride. That's going to give the Clippers even more easy buckets in transition. Simmons' ability to rebound also takes pressure off of Zubac. Right now, Zubac is doing most of the heavy lifting on the boards, but that's about to change. With Simmons crashing the glass alongside him, Zubac won't have to fight for every single rebound by himself. That means he can conserve energy for the offensive end, where he's already shooting at an elite level. He won't have to work as hard on the defensive boards because Simmons will be right there to help him out. And since Simmons can also switch onto bigger players in the post, Zubac won't always have to defend one-on-one against dominant big men. That's going to make Zubac even more effective as a shot blocker and rim protector. But Simmons' biggest impact might come on the defensive end. The Clippers are already one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, ranking at the top of the league in multiple categories. But Simmons is about to take them to another level. He's a unique defender because he can guard every position on the floor, from quick guards to big men in the paint. That's exactly what this Clippers team needed. Right now, guys like Powell, Harden, and Kawhi are taking on some of the toughest matchups in the league. Powell has been an incredible perimeter defender, ranking in the top 88% of players in mixed team defense. Harden, despite being known for his offense, has also stepped up on that end, ranking in the top 96%. And then there's Kawhi, who's still one of the best all-around defenders in the NBA, ranking in the top 96% as well. These guys are already playing at a high level, but they've had to carry a heavy workload on both ends of the floor. That's where Simmons is going to make a huge difference. With Simmons on the floor, Powell, Harden, and Kawhi won't have to take on the toughest assignments every single night. Simmons can step in and guard the best perimeter scorers, whether it's a quick point guard or a dominant wing. That means Kawhi doesn't have to use as much energy chasing star players all game long. He can focus on getting his shots and staying fresh for the fourth quarter. Powell, who's been a great defender, won't have to worry about guarding the best scorer every night because Simmons is there to take that role. And Harden, who's been improving on defense, won't have to carry as much of the load because Simmons can step in and handle tough matchups. And Simmons isn't just a perimeter defender, he can also guard the paint. That's a huge boost for the Clippers because it means they can switch everything on defense without worrying about mismatches. If Simmons gets switched onto a big man, he's strong enough to hold his own in the post. If he's switched onto a quick guard, he's got the lateral movement to stay in front of them. That's exactly the kind of versatility the Clippers needed. His ability to guard both the perimeter and the paint is going to change how the Clippers approach defense. Right now, Zubac is the main rim protector, but Simmons gives them another layer of protection. That means Zubac won't always have to rotate over to contest shots because Simmons can stay in front of his man and prevent easy looks. It also means the Clippers can use smaller lineups without giving up defensive presence because Simmons can hold his own against bigger players. Simmons is also going to make the Clippers even better at forcing turnovers. Right now, Harden is averaging 1.5 steals per game. Powell is putting up 1.3, and Kawhi is adding 1 per game. Simmons isn't far behind, averaging nearly 1 steal per game, but his impact goes beyond just steals. He's got the size, length, and instincts to disrupt passing lanes, force bad shots, and make life miserable for opposing offenses. That's going to lead to even more transition opportunities for the Clippers. And here's where it all comes together. Simmons helps every part of this team. He's going to make Zubac's life easier by grabbing rebounds and switching onto bigs when needed. He's going to take defensive pressure off Powell, Harden, and Kawhi by handling the toughest matchups. He's going to improve the team's ability to guard both the perimeter and the paint, giving them even more flexibility. The Clippers were already one of the best teams in the NBA, but now they've added a player who does all the things that lead to winning. He's going to make their defense even stronger, their rebounding even better, and their transition game even deadlier. Simmons isn't coming in to be the star. He's coming in to be the glue that makes everything work. And with the way this team is built, he's the perfect player to take them to the next level. The numbers don't lie. Simmons is going to make a huge impact on this team. He's going to give the Clippers an elite rebounding presence. He's going to take pressure off their best players on defense, and he's going to make sure they have the versatility to shut down any team in the league. The Clippers were already a problem for opponents, but now, with Simmons in the mix, they're going to be even tougher to beat. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.